There's a strange moment in almost every investing journey where it feels like you're doing everything right and nothing is happening. You're saving consistently, you're investing every month, you're being responsible, and yet your net worth barely moves. This is the phase where most people quietly give up. Not because they're bad with money, but because progress feels invisible. You're working hard, sacrificing now, and the numbers just refuse to cooperate. What most people don't realize is that this isn't failure. It's a known, predictable phase of wealth building. In fact, there's a specific zone, usually somewhere between 50,000 and 200,000, where effort is high, motivation is low, and results feel painfully slow. This is the financial, boring middle, and it's where most investors quit. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. If you make it through that stretch, something changes. Quietly, mathematically, permanently. Around $300,000, your portfolio crosses an invisible line. It stops behaving like a savings account and starts acting like a wealth engine. And once that happens, the jump from 300,000 to 1 million often feels faster than the climb from 0 to 100,000. To understand why, we need to start by explaining why wealth building feels so slow in the beginning, and why that frustration is actually a sign you're closer than you think. Section 1. The Death Valley of Wealth Building. There's a stretch in every financial journey where effort feels disconnected from results. You're saving, you're investing, you're doing everything right, and yet your net worth barely moves. This is the phase most people hit somewhere between $50,000 and $200,000, what I call the death valley of wealth building. It's the most discouraging part of the entire process because almost all the progress is coming from you, not your money. Market gains are small. Returns feel insignificant. One unexpected expense can erase months of discipline. So it feels pointless. But here's the truth most people don't realize while they're stuck here. This phase isn't broken, it's required. This is where habits are formed, where discipline is tested, where the foundation for compounding is quietly built. The people who never build wealth don't fail later. They quit here, right before momentum has a chance to exist. And the ones who survive this phase go on to experience something most people never do, a sudden, undeniable shift where the numbers finally start moving on their own. Section 2. The Halfway Illusion. Most people think the halfway point to $1 million is $500,000. On paper, that's true. In real life, it's completely wrong. The true halfway point isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in time and effort. And by that measure, the real midpoint is much closer to $300,000. Here's why. Wealth doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows by doubling. At normal long-term market returns, money tends to double roughly every 7 to 10 years. That means once you reach around $300,000, you only need 2 more doubles to pass 1 million. But getting those first few $100,000? That's all manual labor. Every dollar saved early on requires sacrifice, discipline, and patience. Later, those same dollars multiply without your involvement. That's why the climb from 0 to 100,000 feels harder than the climb from 300,000 to 1 million, even though the second jump is far larger. The illusion is thinking you're only partway there at 300,000. In reality, that's the moment where time finally starts working harder than you do. Section 3. The silent employee finally shows up. This is the moment everything starts to feel different. Before this point, your future depends almost entirely on your paycheck. If you stop saving, progress stops. If the market has a bad year, it feels devastating. But around $300,000, a new force quietly enters the picture. Your money starts generating real income on its own. At normal market returns, a portfolio of this size can grow by $20,000 or more in a single year, without extra hours, side hustles, or sacrifice. And that number often rivals, or even exceeds, what many people manage to save from their salary in an entire year. This is why it feels like hiring a silent employee. They work every day. They don't complain. They don't take vacations. And they show up whether you do or not. Once this happens, your net worth stops relying on effort alone. Growth becomes shared between you and your capital. And from here on out, the game changes. Section 4. The Velocity Shift. Why milestones start collapsing. Up until this point, Progress feels slow because you're pushing almost everything yourself. But around $300,000, the balance shifts. Early on, adding the first $100,000 can take 7 to 10 years. It's mostly savings, discipline, and patience. The market helps, but only a little. The next 100,000 usually takes far less time. Now your contributions and market growth are working together. And once you reach roughly $300,000, something important happens. Your annual market growth starts rivaling what you can realistically save from your paycheck. At a normal market return, that portfolio can add $20,000 or more in a single year without extra effort. That means each new milestone arrives faster than the last. This is why the jump from $300,000 to $1 million often happens quicker than the climb from 0 to 100,000. The distance between milestones collapses, not because you changed, but because momentum finally did. That's when wealth stops inching forward and starts rolling. Section 5. The psychological safety net, the coast effect. This is where the pressure quietly changes. Once you reach around $300,000, the question in your head shifts from, will I ever get there, to when does this finish? At this level, time starts doing most of the work. Even if you slowed down contributions, that portfolio has decades to compound on its own. For example, someone in their mid-30s with roughly $300,000 invested doesn't need heroic effort anymore. With average long-term growth, that money alone can quietly turn into multiple millions by retirement age. And that creates something powerful: psychological safety. You don't feel forced to chase every promotion. You don't feel trapped in a job you hate. You can take a lower stress role, pause contributions briefly, or focus on life without derailing your future. This is the coast moment. Not retirement yet, but freedom from panic. And once that fear disappears, wealth building becomes calmer, clearer, and surprisingly faster. Section 6. Why most people never reach this point. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence or opportunity. They fail because they quit in the most uncomfortable part of the journey. The stretch between roughly $50,000 and $200,000 feels brutally unrewarding. You're saving, investing, and being disciplined, yet the numbers barely move. It feels like effort without feedback, so people assume something is wrong. They pause contributions, they pull money out, they chase shortcuts or give up entirely. Others let lifestyle creep absorb every raise, keeping their savings rate flat even as income rises. Some rely too heavily on cash or safe choices that never allow compounding to fully engage. But the biggest reason is simpler than all of that. Most people never stay consistent long enough to hire the silent employee. $300,000 isn't about skill, it's about endurance. Those who push through the boring middle cross an invisible line. Those who don't never see what was waiting on the other side. $300,000 isn't the finish line. It's the transition point. It's the moment your money stops behaving like a savings account and starts acting like a system, one that compounds, accelerates, and quietly builds momentum without constant effort. If you're still early in the journey, don't obsess over the balance. Obsess over consistency. Because in the beginning, progress is built by behavior, not by returns. The truth most people never see is this: the hardest work happens before the acceleration. The boring middle isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's proof that you're still in the part that matters most. So here's the real question for you. Which milestone are you grinding through right now? $10,000? $100,000? Or are you closing in on the $300,000 tipping point? Let me know in the comments. And if this helped reframe your journey, make sure to subscribe.